A detective who remembers every step he's ever taken investigates the disappearance of a girl named Lila March. In the foggy town of Durlin, he retraces her path through the eerie Bellgrave Conservatory. I remember every step I've ever taken. That's not a figure of speech. It's an affliction. My mind keeps a perfect map of every path, every hallway, every floorboard that's ever creaked beneath me. Sometimes I wish I could forget them, especially the ones that led to screams. It was late October when the call came in. A girl had vanished from the north side of Durlin, a town wrapped in fog and secrets. 17 years old, name, Lila March. Vanished after leaving a night class at the old Bellgrave Conservatory. No witnesses, no sound, just gone. When I arrived, the air smelled of wet leaves and cold metal. The rain had stopped hours before, but the ground still glistened like a mirror cracked by moonlight. The building itself loomed over me, the kind of place that seemed to breathe in silence, its windows dark and patient. Inside, I traced her last known steps, one after another, across the marble foyer, down the corridor lined with portraits of long-dead benefactors. My memory built the path in my head as if she were walking just ahead of me. That's when I heard it, a faint echo that didn't belong to me. Footsteps, bare feet, light and uneven. They moved ahead of mine, yet when I stopped, they kept going. I called out her name. The sound that came back wasn't an answer. It was a laugh, high, thin, and distant, coming from somewhere deep within the conservatory's old walls. And that's when I saw it. A wet footprint on the marble floor, small and perfect, glistening red in the beam of my flashlight that I knelt beside the footprint. The liquid wasn't paint. I could smell the copper tang immediately. Blood. Fresh. Still warm, maybe minutes old. But it didn't make sense. The missing girl had been gone for 3 nights. 3 long, silent nights. I followed the prints, one after another, down the corridor. My every step echoed like a heartbeat in the dark. The lights overhead flickered weakly, their glow struggling against the black. The portraits seemed to lean closer, as if their painted eyes were eager to see what I'd find. The prints led me to a heavy oak door marked Practice Room 3A. I remembered every inch of that hallway. I'd walked it years ago, on another case. Back then, the room had been sealed, condemned after a fire that took 2 lives. But now, the door stood slightly open, breathing a draft of cold, sour air. I pushed it. The hinges wailed. Inside, the piano sat beneath a dusty white sheet, its shape ghost-like in the dimness. Then I heard it. A faint melody, played slowly, unevenly, as if by trembling hands. The notes weren't coming from the piano in front of me. They were coming from behind the wall. I moved closer. The melody stopped. The silence that followed was thick, oppressive. Then, a whisper seeped through the wall. He remembers every step. The voice was that of a girl, soft, trembling, too close to be a memory. And that's when something touched my shoulder. Cold. Wet. I turned. There was no one there. My pulse pounded in my ears. Too loud, too fast. The air in that room felt heavier now, as if it were watching me. I steadied my breath and swept the beam of my flashlight across the walls. Dust motes drifted like pale insects. The piano loomed in silence, sheet trembling slightly in the draft, but not enough to explain that whisper. Or the touch. Behind the piano, I noticed something the last investigator had missed, a seam in the plaster. Faint, vertical, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. My memory flashed. That same wall, years ago, before the fire. It hadn't been there then. I pressed my ear to it. Nothing. Then, a sound so faint I almost thought it was my own heartbeat. A second heartbeat, slow and deliberate, from the other side. The flashlight flickered. Once. Twice. Then died. In the darkness, I could hear movement. Something brushing lightly against the piano, slow and deliberate, as though circling me. I took a step back. My heel landed in something slick. Another footprint, smaller than mine, and this time, it wasn't blood. It was black, viscous like oil. The smell hit next, sulfur, rot, and burnt wood. Then, from behind the wall, came the soft creak of a hinge, as if a door had opened on the other side. And that whisper again, closer now, breath tickling through the crack. You shouldn't have followed her steps, Dom. Something shifted behind the wall, a thud, followed by a dragging sound. And then, a child's voice, small and broken. Please help me. The plea froze me. That small, trembling voice that didn't belong in a place like this. It came from behind the wall, soft at first, then muffled by something heavy being dragged. I found the seam again with my fingers, tracing the uneven plaster. There, a hollow sound. I stepped back and kicked. The wall cracked, once, twice, then gave way, revealing a narrow door. Old wood. No handle. Just a keyhole, rusted and weeping black stains down the surface. The smell that seeped out was something ancient. Not death exactly, but memory turned rancid. I tried to steady my breath. I'd been in places like this before, cellars beneath churches, sealed basements beneath hospitals. The dark had its own logic, its own rules. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the skeleton key I carried, an old habit from my early days. It slid into the lock like it had been waiting for me. The mechanism turned, slow, reluctant, as if waking from a long sleep. The door opened inward. Beyond it was a staircase that shouldn't have existed, winding down into a narrow shaft cut from the building's bones. No lights, only the faint glow of phosphorescent mold painting the walls in sickly green. And down there, I heard the piano again. Soft, broken notes, drifting upward like breath. I stepped inside. 1 stair, 2, 3, and as my foot touched the 4th, the door behind me slammed shut, hard enough to make the air shudder. Then the music stopped. What replaced it was a sound I'll never forget, the slow, wet tap, tap, tap of bare feet on stone, coming up the stairs toward me. The stairwell swallowed every sound except that one. Tap, 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 slow, deliberate, climbing toward me. I froze mid-step, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The beam caught the slick walls, the glimmer of moisture, the faint mold pulsing faintly like living skin. I called out, "Lila, is that you?" The footsteps stopped. Then came a faint whimper, half breath, half sob, the kind that breaks something in your chest when you hear it. But there was something wrong about it, too. It echoed too long, repeating itself, fading into the walls as though the building were mimicking her. I took another step down, and the temperature dropped so sharply my breath came out in clouds. The air smelled of old ash and iron. Then I saw it. A handprint smeared on the wall beside me, small, human, but scorched around the edges as if pressed there by fire. I touched it, and the surface pulsed faintly beneath my fingertips, warm, alive. The light from my torch flickered once more, and that's when I saw her. A girl, standing on the landing below me, head tilted, hair wet, dress clinging to her as though she'd just climbed out of a river. Her eyes caught the beam, wide, glassy, reflecting nothing. "Lila," I whispered. She smiled. Too wide, too still. And then, without moving her lips, a voice came from her direction. Low, guttural, wrong. "You remember every step, Dom. But not the ones you never took." The light died completely. In that darkness, I felt her fingers brush against my face, cold, wet, impossibly long. And somewhere far below us, a door creaked open, inviting. The darkness closed in like cloth soaked in ice water. I could still feel her touch lingering on my cheek, a chill that sank deeper than skin, right down to the bone. My hand found the wall. Slick, breathing. I moved by memory now, step by step, every motion measured. I could hear my own heartbeat again, but beneath it another rhythm echoed from the pit below, slow and patient, as if the house itself had a pulse. Then that other door, the one below, groaned wider. A thread of faint red light bled up through the stairwell. Not warm light, but the color of smoldering embers, dull and living. I called her name once more. Nothing answered, not even the echo. Only that smell, stronger now, scorched dust and something sweet, like burned flowers. When I reached the bottom, the stairs ended abruptly in a narrow hallway lined with mirrors, tall, cracked, their glass mottled with age. But they didn't show me. Each pane reflected a different version of the same corridor, same walls, same light, but no detective. No Dom. Only shadows walking away from where I stood. And in one of them, the farthest mirror, a girl appeared. Her reflection looked straight at me, even though there was no one standing there. She raised a finger to her lips. Shoo. Then every mirror at once began to hum, low and trembling, until the glass rippled like water. The reflection of the hall twisted, bent, and from within that warped space, a door began to form. The same door I had just passed through. Only now, it was opening again from the other side. The humming deepened until I could feel it in my teeth, a vibration crawling through the marrow. Every mirror quivered, the surfaces flexing like muscle under glass. My reflection finally appeared, but it was wrong. The eyes too dark, the mouth twitching just a moment slower than mine. The door inside the glass creaked wider. From behind it came the soft rustle of movement, something dragging across a floor I couldn't see. I stepped closer. The air thickened, syrupy, the red light behind me pulsing in rhythm with my heart. My reflection leaned forward too, except I hadn't moved. Its breath misted the glass. Then I heard her again. The girl's voice, whispering from behind the mirror door. "He's here again." Another voice answered her. A man's this time, low, gravelly, almost tender. "He always finds his way back." The reflection smiled then, my smile, but stretched, cracking at the corners. The sound that followed was the soft snap of breaking bone. The glass fractured, once. Then again. A spider web of cracks bloomed outward from the face of my reflection until, with a sound like ice splitting on a river, it shattered. I shielded my face, but no shards fell. Instead, the pieces hung in the air, suspended, each fragment showing something different. A hallway, a forest, a girl running barefoot through rain. A face I recognized but couldn't name. And in the center of them all, the same man's voice whispered, close enough to feel the words on my neck. "Keep walking, Dom. You've already stepped too far to turn back now." Then the red light flickered once and went out. The next thing I saw was impossible. The stairwell was gone. I was standing in a forest of mirrors under a sky with no stars. That it was silent. Not the kind of silence that waits to be broken. The kind that smothers, that makes your breath feel like a trespass. The mirrors stretched endlessly between trees that shouldn't have been there, smooth trunks of glass and silver bark reflecting me from every angle. No horizon, no wind, only that faint red pulse far above, throbbing like a dying sun. My first step echoed, though there was no ground beneath my feet, only a thin layer of mist. Each step left a faint shimmer behind, a footprint that glowed and then faded, like time trying to erase me. Then came the sound again. Tap, tap, tap. The same bare footsteps, weaving between reflections. I turned sharply, but saw only myself. Hundreds of me, each frozen mid-turn, staring with the same confusion. Then, one reflection, just one, blinked when I didn't. I froze. It smiled back, and from behind its glass, a hand reached out, pressing flat against the surface. The glass rippled. A heartbeat later, I felt fingers press against my back, from behind. I spun around. No one. But the mirrors nearest to me began to darken, one by one, like ink soaking through their silvered veins. Shapes moved inside them, crawling, bending wrong, heads twitching as if searching for a way out. And then, from far off in that infinite forest, a voice drifted through the fog. "You followed her steps, detective. But do you remember when she started following yours?" The words were followed by laughter, dozens of overlapping tones, all childlike, all wrong. The mist around my feet began to move, swirling, coiling like smoke. From it, a face began to rise, pale, eyeless, and whispering my name. The fog rippled as the face rose fully into view. Pale as bone, mouth slightly open, whispering my name again and again in a voice too soft, too wet. "Dom, Dom." It wasn't speaking, it was breathing the word. Each syllable fogged the air in front of it, forming shapes that almost looked like letters before dissolving into the mist. I took a slow step back. The ground gave slightly, like stepping on soaked earth. Beneath the thin layer of vapor, I saw faint outlines, bones, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, pressed into the translucent floor. I steadied my flashlight, its beam flickering weakly in this strange place. The light hit the nearest mirror and scattered, illuminating the reflections like candles. Each mirror now showed a different scene, a hallway, a classroom, a flooded basement, and in every one of them stood the same girl, her head turned toward me. Lila. Except in some reflections she was older. In others, younger. One showed her sitting at a piano, hands trembling. Another, standing over a figure lying motionless on the floor. And then the voice came again. Not from the mist, but from the mirrors. A dozen Liliths whispering in unison. "He remembers every step, but he doesn't remember what he's walking toward. My stomach turned cold. Then, all the mirrors went dark except one, the nearest. It showed me standing over a body. The girl's body. My own hand gripping her wrist, smeared with blood. I blinked, and the reflection smiled. Behind me, something moved in the fog, slow, deliberate, circling closer. You see it now, don't you? The whisper came, this time from everywhere. You never came here to find her. You came back. The mist began to rise higher, swallowing the mirrors one by one, until the only thing left visible was that reflection, me, standing over her, and the faint echo of a single piano key struck, over and over, like a heartbeat. The sound grew sharper with each repetition. A single piano note, struck again and again, unyielding, like someone trying to wake the dead. The mirrors were gone now. The mist churned around my knees, and the red light above had faded to a faint pulse, like the last ember of a dying star. I followed the sound. Every instinct screamed don't, but my legs moved anyway, as if the rhythm itself commanded me. The further I walked, the more the air changed, thicker, humming with a low vibration. Soon, I saw it, the piano from the conservatory, sitting impossibly in the fog. The keys gleamed white, though the wood around them was blackened and blistered by fire. The seat was empty, but the keys still moved. Slowly, on their own. I approached, each step sinking into a floor that wasn't there. My reflection flickered across the polished surface of the instrument, but not quite right. The eyes were hollow, the mouth moving on its own, whispering words I couldn't hear. Then, suddenly, the music stopped. The silence hit hard, thick as smoke. A breath brushed my ear. Play it. I turned, nothing. The fog moved lazily around me, breathing in and out. My fingers hovered above the keys. I hesitated. Then, one note. The sound rang out clear, echoing endlessly into the void. But when the echo came back, it wasn't just sound anymore. It was a voice, and it wasn't hers. You remember every step because they're not yours, Dom. The piano lid snapped shut like a trap. My hand barely escaped. The wood trembled beneath it, then cracked. From the split between the keys, something began to crawl out. Fingers first. Small, human, and covered in ash. The fingers clawed at the air, small, childlike, slick with soot and something darker. The piano shuddered, its lid splintering as another hand forced its way through, then another. Pale arms writhing from the blackened wood like roots desperate for light. Each one moved differently, twitching, flexing, searching, but all of them reached toward me. I stumbled back, but the air itself felt thicker, resisting my every move. The smell of burnt lacquer and iron filled my throat. Then the piano began to breathe. The keys rose and fell with the rhythm of lungs drawing air, wheezing through broken wood. And then, from within that ruin, a voice, soft, trembling, almost human. You left me there. I froze. The voice wasn't Lila's. It was deeper, older, familiar in a way that twisted something in my chest. You were supposed to help me, Dom. The hands reached farther, the fingers now scraping against the mist. I saw symbols burned into their skin, small spirals and numbers that seemed to shift when I blinked. My mind flashed, a case file long buried, an investigation I had closed too soon. A fire, a missing girl, and a name I hadn't spoken in years. Eleanor, I whispered. The air shuddered. The piano stopped moving. Every hand froze mid-reach. And then, together, they pointed, past me. I turned. Standing behind me in the fog was a figure wearing my own coat. My badge. My face. But the eyes were all wrong. Two pits of gleaming black, reflecting everything except me. You remember every step, it said, smiling faintly. Because I gave them to you. The air tightened around us. Two versions of me, one living, one rehearsed. He stood perfectly still, head tilted just slightly, as though listening to something I couldn't hear. The mist curled around his boots, but didn't touch him. It avoided him, like even the fog was afraid. I took a step forward. So did he, perfectly mirrored. But when I stopped, he didn't. He kept coming, slow and deliberate, boots leaving no prints behind. The closer he got, the colder the air became, until my breath came out in shards of frost. His eyes, those black pits, reflected the faint glow of the dead piano behind me, and in them I saw flickers of memory. The conservatory, the missing girl, the first crime scene, the flames. He spoke softly, my own voice folded back on itself. You built me one step at a time. Every case, every death, every lie you told yourself. I shook my head. You're not real. He smiled, a crack splitting across his cheek like old porcelain. Neither are you, detective. Not anymore. The piano behind me let out a long, trembling note on its own, high and sharp, like a scream stretched thin. He raised his hand, my hand, and I saw the same mark branded into his palm that I'd seen on the children's fingers. Spirals. Numbers. Burning faintly. Then, without warning, he drove that marked hand into his own chest. The sound was thick, wet. He gripped something inside, and when he pulled it out, I saw what it was. A heart. Mine. Still beating. Here, he whispered, holding it toward me. Take it back. Remember what you did with it. The mirrors around us began to rise again from the mist, forming a circle. In each reflection, the same image, the girl, the fire, me. And for the first time since the case began, I couldn't remember which of us had been the detective. The heart pulsed faintly in his outstretched hand, not bright red, but gray, as if every memory it held had been drained away. I could hear it beating even before I touched it, the rhythm syncing with my own pulse until I couldn't tell which one belonged to me. He stepped closer. His smile didn't move, but the skin around it trembled, like it was trying to remember how to stay human. You think you've been chasing her, he said quietly. But she was the one leading you back here. Back to the beginning. I wanted to ask what he meant, but the fog stirred, and suddenly we weren't in the forest anymore. The mirrors bent inward, reshaping, their edges hissing like hot iron plunged into water. When they settled, I was back at the conservatory, or something that wore its shape. Only this time, it was burning. Flames crawled up the walls in slow motion, their light pale and unnatural, like fire dreaming of itself. The piano still stood in the center of the room, untouched by the blaze. The other me turned toward it, still holding my heart. She was here, he said, voice almost tender. You promised her you'd help. But when the fire started, you ran. Images flashed through the smoke. A girl pounding on a locked door, screaming for someone. My hand on the handle, then pulling away. The flames swallowing the sound. Lila's eyes in the window. Then nothing. I staggered back. No. I went for help. You remember every step, he interrupted softly. So tell me, Dom, why can't you remember those? He took my hand, pressed the cold, gray heart into it. The moment my fingers closed around it, the fire roared to life. The sound of the piano, the scream of a girl, the cracking of mirrors, all at once. And then the world split open. The heat hit first, not on my skin, but inside my skull, as though the memory itself were burning me from within. Flames spun around the room, feeding on nothing, devouring everything. And in their light, I saw it, the truth, raw and merciless. That night wasn't an accident. It wasn't a rescue gone wrong. I had locked the door, not out of malice, out of fear, because I'd found something I wasn't supposed to. The evidence, the ledger, the names that tied the Bellgrave Conservatory to something much darker. Lila had seen it too. She'd come to me for help. And when the fire began, when the smoke poured in, I panicked. I shut the door to stop it spreading, not realizing she was still inside. But the fire didn't stop, and she didn't leave. The smoke twisted around me, forming shapes, her face, her hands, reaching through it. The same hands that had clawed from the piano, the same eyes that stared from the mirrors. You left me to the fire, she whispered. So I stayed in it. I learned its language. I waited for your steps. Behind me, the other version of myself laughed softly, that hollow, broken sound that no longer belonged to lungs. You built your memory into a prison, Dom, so you'd never forget. But she's part of it now. The walls cracked. The mirrors fell. The fire poured through every opening, crawling up my legs, wrapping me in light that didn't burn, but revealed. And in that moment, I saw them. All the missing faces, all the cases I'd carried with me like ghosts. Every one of them standing in the flames. You remember every step, Lila whispered again, voice soft as ash. Now walk your last one. She reached for me through the fire. Her hand touched mine. The world dissolved into light. The light swallowed everything. The fire's roar faded into a low, steady hum. The sound of my own heartbeat slowing, stretching into infinity. When the brightness dimmed, I found myself standing in the conservatory once more. Whole, silent, no flames, no mirrors. The piano sat untouched in the corner, its lid closed, its keys still. The air was cool, clean, almost peaceful. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I saw the footprints. A trail of small, bare feet across the marble floor, not wet, not bloody this time, but glowing faintly, like embers cooling in the dark. They led to the same door I'd opened on that first night. Practice room 3A. I followed them, one last time. Inside, the room was empty except for a single candle burning on the piano. The flame didn't flicker, even though the air moved around it. And beside it, in the dust, a note written in ash. You can stop walking now. I felt something lift inside me. A weight I hadn't known was still there. My chest hurt, but in that ache was release. The memory no longer fought me. It simply was. Then I heard her voice one final time, not from the shadows, not from the fire, but from within me. Every step you took led here. Dom. Remembering isn't punishment. It's mercy. The candle went out. Darkness returned, but it was gentler now. No whispers. No laughter. Just silence. When I stepped outside, dawn was breaking over Durlin. The fog glowed gold and silver. The city was waking. I looked back once, half expecting the conservatory to vanish, but it stayed, still, old, real. And for the first time in years, my mind was quiet. I remember every step. But now, I know which ones were mine. The case of the missing girl was never about finding her. It was about finding the part of me that vanished with her. And maybe, that's what ghosts really are.